I'm so honored to have your endorsement. It means so much to me personally, and it means a lot to me politically. And so without further ado, I present to you Congressman Tom McClintock.
I cannot begin to put into words how grateful I am to each and every one of you for standing by Scott Wilk the way you have. I'm only involved in 4 primary races across California. I try to stay out of it unless there is a very compelling reason. And this was the easiest, no-brainer endorsement I have ever made. I have known Scott Wilk for now going on 30 years. Nobody has worked harder, nobody has prepared more thoroughly than to take a leadership role in the state legislature than Scott Wilk has. And never has there been a more important time to elect someone of his integrity, of his ability, of his sincerity than there is right now. As I was coming up from the airport this afternoon, I was listening to John and Ken, and they were talking. I don't need to tell you about what a fix the state is in. But they were pointing out that there was a survey of CEOs of major 500 major companies, which once again rated California the worst state in the country to do business, 8th year in a row. And not a surprise. I mean, one of the highest unemployment rates, highest electricity rates. You can go right down the list, and I don't have to. You all know what the situation is. And I marvel at that. As we watch this exodus of people leaving California, we've had more than a net loss. 2 million more people have moved out of California than have moved in over the past few years. And they are seeking refuge in places like Arizona and Nevada and Texas. And think about that. When people can find, look at this beautiful, beautiful state that we're standing in right now. And people are finding, exactly, people are finding a better place to live and work and raise their families out in the middle of the Nevada nuclear test range than they're coming here in California. And it really is a dramatic testament to the power of government. These aren't mysterious acts of God that have struck down our state. These are all, I can't imagine a conceivable act of God that could wreak that much damage on a state like ours. Right. These are acts of government. And the good news is that is within our power to change. I take a look at the state legislature today, and has there ever been a more sorry lot governing the future of our state than those that are there right now? It is stunning to me. It's something that Abraham Lincoln once said. He said, the voters are everything. If the voters get their backsides too close to the fire, they'll just have to sit on the blisters a while. It's a painful experience, but it is a learning experience. And what I'm seeing all across this state is a level of civic engagement. People beginning to get tired of sitting on those blisters, and they're starting to get involved. I do town halls all across my district, and it is amazing to me. I've been now involved in public policy for 40 years. I've never seen this level of public engagement. It used to be you call a town hall meeting, the same 10 or 15 gadflies, you could always count on it. It would occupy the first couple of rows, and it would be a tedious and waste of time. Now you call a town hall meeting and you pack entire auditoriums. And I've taken to asking 2 questions. Number one, and again, we mail to everybody, so it's a broad cross-section of the community. How many of you think that this administration's got us on the right track? And there's maybe one person over there and one person over there. And then I'll say, how many of you think that they've got us on the wrong track? And it is like lighting a match and throwing it into a pool of gasoline. The whole place explodes. And then the far more revealing question that I ask, and it has been consistent in every group that I've addressed over the past 3 years, is how many of you have only been involved actively in politics? I mean, going to meetings like this since this administration took over. And anywhere between a half and 3/4 of the hands will immediately go up in every audience. We are watching something that we really don't have anything to compare with in our own lifetimes, but you can see it at great moments in American history. This is what Americans do when Americans sense the approach of danger. In normal times, people don't pay a lot of attention to politics because they don't need to. It's not apathy. That's the process of getting up in the morning, getting the kids ready for school, getting to work on time, picking up the kids, getting them to soccer practice, dropping off the dry cleaning, stopping at the grocery store. Don't forget the kids. You come home, you make dinner, you throw a load of laundry in, try to get the kids to do their homework, and turn out the damn bathroom lights, and by then, the day's gone. But when people see a danger approaching, they put aside their work and their families and their hobbies, and they begin to put enormous amounts of time and energy and attention into first figuring out what's wrong and then in setting things right. That is what we are watching all across the country, and clearly we're watching that all across the state. We saw that in 2010 when Republicans took Ronald Reagan's advice, rediscovered our principles, stood by them, painted our positions in bold colors, united Republicans in Congress, and then rallied the American people. That was one of the great watershed elections in American history, and it occurred because people understood that these votes matter, that they're not something to be taken lightly, that it can be a blessing in a democracy, but it can just as often be a curse. But we are always guaranteed every single election to get the government we vote for. And if it turns out to be a government that is not of our liking, maybe that's just nature's way of warning us as a people to be a lot more careful about those votes, and people are being more careful about them. And that brings me here to California and here to what's going on in this district and in this room tonight. This election matters. California is not predestined to be governed by idiots forever. You show me where it's written that we have to be governed by the lunatic fringe of our society. I mean, that's what's in control of the state legislature right now. Right. But how did they get there? Well, yeah, we voted for them, but two things happened. Number one, Republicans nationally rediscovered our principles, we stood by them, and we rallied the country. But at the same time in California, exactly the opposite was happening. And you remember that election, it was just a year ago. It was the Democrats attacking the Republicans for putting through the biggest tax increase by any state in American history. That tax increase, by the way, was supposed to cure the state deficit. They actually did so much damage to the economy with that tax increase, they were actually collecting less total revenues after they imposed the new taxes than they had been before. So it matters. It was the Republicans attacking Arizona's immigration law. It was the Democrats calling for pension reform with the opposition to the Republicans. We've had this wing in our party that's this lazy, go-along, get-along crowd that Ronald Reagan mentioned in 1977. Remember that famous speech he said when America hungers for a sense of mission and greatness. He said, is it a third party we need, or is it a new and revitalized second party? Raising a banner of bold colors and no pale pastels. He says, I don't know about you, but I'm impatient with those who after the last election rushed to the microphones and said we have to broaden the base of our party, when what they really meant was to fuzz up and blur even more the distinction between ourselves and our opponents. And he went on to put those principles into practice, and one day all of us, after a lot of hard work and a great danger to our country, ended up, and it was morning again in America. Those who think that somehow we have to be more like the Democrats than the Democrats have had their way in election after election in this state, and it does not work. Dick Armey was absolutely right. When we act like us, we win. When we act like them, we lose. That's right. That's one of the reasons why this election right here in this district is so important, because it is a clash of the Ronald Reagan wing of our party, what I like to call the Republican wing of our party, raising that banner of bold colors, and the lazy go-along, get-along, Republican in name only political establishment that cost us the majority in 2006, cost us the White House in 2008, and have cost us election after election in California. They have had it their way. It does not work. We've got to take our party back, because that's the only way we're going to be able to take our government back. Race. You are watching the money flooding into the opposition. Defense contractors are somehow, suddenly, for some reason, I can't imagine why, feverishly interested in this particular district in the California State Assembly. Now, I'm not going to draw any aspersions. The facts speak for themselves. The good news is everybody can see what's going on. Everybody understands what's going on, because in this election, everybody is paying attention to what's going on, because in this election, people understand this is our futures on the line. This is our families, our kids, their futures on the line. This is happening. Our state and what has happened to our country has happened on our generation's watch. It is our generation's responsibility to set things straight. Now, the other really good news is this. We don't have to outspend the opposition, nowhere close to it. I've been outspent a lot in a lot of primaries over the years, and I've triumphed in every one of them, because we were able to raise not more than the opposition, but we were able to raise enough to get our message out. So every dollar that you're putting in is going to provide far, far greater advantage to this campaign than the dollars going into the other side, because this campaign has a message that is resonating, and is resonating clearly with voters. And there's one other thing that cannot possibly be bought. It cannot be influenced from Washington, D.C., and from the bowels of government. It is something that can't even be measured. But it's neighbors talking to neighbors. I mean, all the debates that go on in Washington and in Sacramento really are meaningless. They are simply a reflection of a much larger debate that's going on right now among the American people. It's going on over backyard fences and family dinner tables and coffee at Starbucks. And it is upon the outcome of that real debate that the future of our state and our country will be decided. So please, in addition to your generous support of this campaign, and like I said, this one counts, please also take every day, we've got what, 34 left, I believe? Yes. 34 days. Figure out some way every day to plunge into that debate, whether it's a letter to the editor, a call to a talk show, coming to a public forum and asking questions. If you see an article that your friends need to see, email it to them. If there's a place to leave comments after that article on the internet, leave those comments. If you have any idea what Facebook is, I don't, but I think it's really important. Twitter, whatever that is, whatever forum you can find. Actually, I have no excuse. I've got a couple of 20-somethings. I ought to know this stuff. The point is, this debate is of critical importance, and it's ultimately not going to be carried by the candidates or the campaigns or the newspapers. It's going to be carried by individual citizens talking to one another, because that's the debate that's deciding the future of our country. It's a debate that I have never seen a higher level of engagement in. So basically, just keep doing what you're doing. And there is no doubt in my mind that we will send Scott Wilk to Sacramento. And then, look at that bunch of sorry dolts in the state legislature. Think about what one leader who's prepared basically his whole life for this moment in time, one leader who has worked his entire life for this moment in time. Imagine sending him from this district to Sacramento and what he will be able to do.